don't complicate it. If you surrender your life to the principles, then out of that, you begin to live life as God intends it to be lived, as God structured it to be lived. And again, I think that when we're living at a place that we don't surrender, it's like going to a doctor. If a doctor tells you certain things to do to get better, and you don't do those things, the same is true in our walk with God. Now, the good news is He's a lot more merciful and enduring
Thank God for that,
than people are. But in the same sense, I think it's ridiculous for us to think it works God's ways if we're not submitted to His principles. Your home, it matters. You're there to make a difference.
Well, welcome to Home Matters Podcast.
Good day.
Good day.
Welcome to Home Matters Podcast.
I never know what you're about to do when we start this podcast.
Just here to help and to serve and
to encourage. That's right.
Yeah, we're glad you joined us today. I know that you listen at different times, and if you're up at 5:30 in the morning, is that when it hits?
I think it comes out at 5.
At 5, if you're up at 5, listen.
I usually don't catch it right then when it comes out, to be honest. So
me neither. Rarely.
No.
But
hey, this is number 140, and we thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for taking time to be with us. This podcast makes me think of a guy that's connected to our church because we're naming it 100%.
CJ, if you're listening out there, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Did you think about that before we started? I just thought about that once.
I can't think 100% without thinking of CJ. And again,
I think he even has a shirt, doesn't he, that just says 100%.
All about giving 100%. CJ, I hope you're listening. But again, we that's kind of the title, isn't it? 100%, 100% success.
In marriage, in family, in your home. I mean, that sounds crazy, 100%.
But you're saying that we can have a 100% success rate.
I am.
And we've talked about that, and we've used this guy's quote, and I think that's kind of where
that's kind of where it came from. Jimmy Evans, years and years ago, I heard him say that every marriage has a 100% chance of succeeding, of being productive, being enjoyable, being fun. And, with the separation, with the divorce rate that we all hear about, whether in the church or outside the church, I mean, that just seems kind of a stretch.
He says that, though. He says it's 100% chance. Your marriage has a 100% chance of success if you do it God's way.
That's right.
And that's kind of, always where we land as well. So
it doesn't just happen.
Yep.
Right? But we just believe and have always said, if you will follow the principles in God's word, right? Yep. If you'll do it His way, then you have 100% chance of success in whether it's in your marriage, in your relationship as husband and wife, whether it's parenting and raising your kids, and yours might be going crazy right now, and you're like, wow, I really need to tune in today and hear what they're going to say. But if we submit to those principles that God's given us in His word, I absolutely believe what Jimmy Evans said years ago is true.
Yeah. And again, we're talking about it being not just getting by. We're talking about you being actually at a place where it's
We're not talking about
productive.
Survival mode here. We're talking about, you said it, being productive.
Yeah, you finding your place. We always use survival, success, significance. I believe that everybody can live into the place that even as a family, as a couple, or if you're single parenting, even then, there's places. May not always be the ideal, but you do things God's way and you'll find out it works and you become productive from that.
Productive and enjoying life together.
Yeah.
I think that's so important because I think you can just get so bogged down, especially, in marriage, but I was thinking especially in raising kids, just trying to meet all the demands of parenting, whether it's single parent or whether you're mother and father in the home. There's just so much that goes along with that. And we get bogged down in that, and we really don't enjoy every day. We don't enjoy our kids because we're just trying to keep our head above water.
You got to make sure you distinguish. We're not talking about always happy, right?
There's a big difference.
Yep.
Yes.
We're saying there's a sense of joy that you know that you're headed in the right direction.
That's right. Doesn't mean you will enjoy every day.
It's kind of like this. It's like if you're on a trip, you're taking a trip. Mm-hmm. You may not enjoy every facet of the journey.
I usually don't. I'm not a good traveler.
The fact is you know where you're going, and when you know where you're going, it makes it worth it, and you can enjoy.
That's right.
The overall when you realize that you're headed somewhere, and there's a future and a destiny that is out there for you. So again, we're not talking about happiness. Too many people depend on happiness. I've always said happiness depends on what's happening to you. Mm-hmm. And again, there's a place in your life that you realize that you don't have to be happy all the time. You still have some sense of joy in your life that you know that you're on this journey. You've got a destination, and you're gonna get there.
Man, and along the way, you do have those times where you enjoy the victories, the wins, so to speak. Yeah. When maybe you've just been kind of trying to drill this principle home with your kid or something, and all of a sudden you're like, they got it. They got it. It's happening. Even in the marriage relationship. So there are those days where we can enjoy, but we just want to encourage you today. The Bible gives clear directives. I think we wonder about too many things when it comes to home and family life. I do believe that God gives us clear directives of how to walk in His way and see it work.
Yeah, I think that with that, I'd say it this way: don't complicate it. If you surrender your life to the principles, if you place yourself under those principles, those guiding principles, then out of that, then you begin to live life as God intends it to be lived, as God structured it to be lived. And again, I think that when we're living at a place that we don't surrender, then
that's true.
The reality is if it's like going to a doctor. If a doctor tells you certain things to do to get better, and you don't do those things. I heard just the other day, a doctor told his patient, said, "Well, I'm through seeing you. You won't need to come back." And they said, "Well, why?" He said, "Because you haven't done anything. You're not doing the things I'm prescribing." So with that, again, I think the same is true in our walk with God. Now, the good news is He's a lot more merciful and enduring than people are. But in the same sense, I think it's ridiculous for us to think it works God's ways if we're not submitted to His principles.
That's right.
We're surrendered to His truth. So.
And that takes effort and determination on our part just to, I think, to be lifelong learners. I still need to know how to be a better wife, and how now at this season in life, how to be a good Gigi. I'm Gigi. That's grandma for all you out there, but I'm not grandma. That sounds older to me, so I chose to be Gigi. But just knowing, learning that role maybe, if that's how to say it. Just making sure that we're continually learning and seeking God's word and seeking His way and seeking wisdom.
Again, you bring out something, just a thought. It doesn't matter which title you get. If you don't act like Gigi or grandma or granny, how about that one?
No, no thanks.
If you don't submit yourself to that way, that pattern of nurturing and caring for grandchildren, helping your children, and caring for, if you don't submit yourself to that, I know people that may have the title, but they may not be living into that. It's what I've said through the years, even in the leadership role or in the role that I'm in. It really doesn't matter what you call me. It's really my function in your life.
Yeah.
And if you don't submit to that function in your life, if I don't have that place in your life, it doesn't matter what you call me. You can call me pastor. I never like to be called reverend, but never felt like there was one reverend, and that's he's the most high and holy one. That's Jesus. But again, with that, you follow what I'm saying?
I do.
I think that principally you have to plug in. You have to understand this is my role. This is a place of my life.
This is the place that God has given me.
Right.
Yeah. And so then.
Not saying everybody in that has to be grandma the same way or Gigi the same way. We're just saying it.
But you still seek out what is required of that role and what, how we can live into that as best we can.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay.
So we've got some thoughts with that.
Yes.
Bible gives some directives, okay?
It does. And this is just a start, okay? We got 3 things here we're going to throw out just on our way to 100%.
100%.
Right?
100%.
That's what he said.
And again, it's a place to start. And again, as a husband and wife, and as we navigate marriage, as parents, navigate parenting.
Single parent.
Yep.
Grandparents raising kids. Whatever the role is, this is foundational. I'll use that word because you have to secure. This is the first thing. You got to secure a sure, firm foundation.
Sure.
Right? I think that's clear in the word. Matthew 7 talks about, building our house on the sand, building our house on the rock, and the rock being Jesus Christ, his teachings, his plan, right? That's where we build our house. That is our firm foundation. If that is not sure, if that is not where we turn to get our answers, then we're in trouble from the start.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Right. Again, you can't build anything without a foundation.
That's right.
And that's where we're starting. And again, Jesus made it clear in Matthew 7, if you listen to him, if you'll follow his words. And again, Jesus is the fullness of the word, right? He is everything that the word was given to us. But again, we see it in our lives principally lived out. But he said, if you don't build your house that way on foundation, it's like a man builds his house on the sand. And when the storm comes,
the storms come,
the rains fall.
That's those hard days. That's the days that are not the happy days, right? Those are the days that we don't enjoy so much, this role that we are in at the time. But the truth is those days come, those seasons sometimes even comes, the tough things. And what the word says is so clear there. If we don't have a firm foundation, then we will be shaken. Right. During that time. Our whole family.
And he actually, Jesus called the man there. He says, the man don't do it is foolish.
Yeah,
if you don't build your life on his words, on what he's given us, what he's prescribed us, then he said that man's like a foolish man. And
I actually read that in the Message, and I'm pretty sure the Amplified said the same thing. It used a word that we don't like to use a lot because it's really not nice, but it was in those versions. It said it's a stupid man.
I like that version. That's my lingo right there.
I read it in several versions before we came in today.
And it said he's stupid?
Said he was a stupid man.
What version is that?
I'm pretty sure it was the Message, but I read it in the Amplified too because I was surprised at one of the versions. Maybe it was ESV. I don't know. I read several different versions, but there were 2 different ones that said it was It wasn't a real smart.
Did any versions use the word idiot?
No, that's my word. No version uses that. But either way, if you shake it down, it just means that we are not using wisdom if we don't build on the sure foundation of Jesus Christ.
So you want a great marriage? You want to do better at parenting? You want all that? Then do it God's way, right?
All those things. Build on his word.
And again, foundationally, that's something that has to be secure.
That's right.
Secondly, we always talk about building God's way. And again, these kind of sound similar. But the second thought that I think that we bring out is this, that you actually, foundationally, these things don't move, right?
Right.
And there's some truths there.
That's right. That are sure.
Again, a good foundation is, you don't bear false witness. That's good foundation. You don't lie. Dishonesty can't be a part of your relationship.
Your home life,
it has to be integrity. So again, that's foundational. Now, as we build, again,
we go to Psalm 127. We've used it for decades in Home Matters ministry. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain that build it. Yeah. So once we have the foundation of Jesus Christ himself, his word, his way, then as we build according to his plan, his guidelines. Maybe put it that way.
And here's the variable now. If I can throw it out there this way, here's the variable. People will find themselves in different places, different roles, different circumstances. You can't apply things in your life that don't match where you're at, right? Mm-hmm. Boy, I mean, we're getting into some sticky territory here, but I do believe
so. I think.
Well, I believe when it comes to principle, there are principles that apply in different situations and circumstances. Like children, you raise your children. We know the principle in raising our kids that is unmovable is you raise them you nurture them in the love and the admonition of the Lord. So that is foundational, but the way you nurture them may be variable.
Right. The passage, and we've referred to it before. Wow, it just left me. Raise them up in the way they should go.
Train them up.
Train them up the way they should go.
Yeah.
And they won't depart from it. And if you really dig deep in that verse, it's talking more about the child and their giftings, but
also I think there's an inference there that if you leave a child alone, it's just they're going to go the way they will go.
Yeah. And
they won't depart from it. They'll just get in their own
vein,
own rut,
yeah,
own way of life. If you don't nurture that, if you don't train that, if you don't teach them the way to go, they can just be stuck there. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of 56-year-olds that are stuck. Right. But I'm just saying that with that, again, there are principles that work. Again, you may find that in your children, we raised 4 kids.
Different. All of them were so different.
The principle is trained. The principle is discipline, right? Mm-hmm. We knew that was something that could not be left out. Again, some people today, they marginalize that, and but again, there's different ways of discipline. There's a principle that may work with one child that says,
won't work with the other.
We discipline by correction that is
close to corporal.
That is corporal. I'll just say it. There's some children that require spanking.
I know some of ours, you could just speak to them, and Eric's voice you could just see it in their face, just they begin to crumble. Yeah. And then some, it's almost like you see them bow up, right? Yeah, because they're ready to fight.
Yeah.
But what you're saying there is just God gives us the outline. He gives us the structure.
Yeah.
And then within that, we're not building, and God didn't intend to build cookie cutter homes.
Right.
Or we said a lot of times cookie cutter marriages. Everybody's is not going to look the same. We're gifted differently. Our house is not going to look just like somebody else's, but at the same time, they all can look like God intends for them to look.
But I'll tell you one thing that looks the same: foundations.
Exactly.
Foundations are established the same way. If you go physically, you build a home, then everything foundationally is pretty much going to be the same. But the structure atop of that may be different. And again, that's what we're saying. There's a place, foundationally, marriage is husband and wife. That's foundational. You can't choose other options when it comes to marriage. But again, the way that marriage is navigated, the way you live it out, the callings on your life, they may be different, and the principles that are there that apply to where you are is very different. So again, we're saying foundationally, unmovable.
Right.
Building, practical.
Exactly.
Is that the right way to say it? Applicable.
I think that's good, yeah.
Again, if you're not building, if you're not raising children, the principles don't apply to your wife, right?
Exactly.
Don't apply to your husband. You're not mom or daddy to each other. So again, with that.
So that'll be different. And then third, I think it's important to throw this in here because it doesn't matter what the family dynamic looks like as far as whether it's mom, dad, 3 kids, 5 kids, or single parent raising 2 kids, what it looks like. The principle is we choose the other before ourselves every single time.
Yeah.
That's real easy to do, right?
Philippians 2.
Isn't that easy to do?
No, not always, but it's basically saying this.
Preferring.
Don't look out for your own interests, look out for the interest of others. And boy, that'd be a good place to start at home, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, we're looking out for their good, always, for their good, right? We prefer them. The passage, again, Eric gave it, take time to read it. It's so clear that we prefer that our own desires and needs many times. Man, how true is that in relationship? Yeah. If it's all about me all the time, then I'm gonna have a problem with finding that 100%.
And the interest of others.
Yeah.
That old language, again, with preference, looking out for the other's interest. Mm-hmm. Again, I think that's so true in every facet of our home. You know, we're taught, and I spent some time on this series a while back called Call Me Crazy, but you're going to need me. But there's a place in your life that you realize you do need other people. Yes. But in that, I talked about navigating relationships. And I said this, I said, you always, as a husband, I'm always looking out. I'm committed to my wife's good. I'm not just trying to get what I want out of it. I'm not going to live selfishly, but I'm going to always try to look out. Well, we have to do that with children.
Yeah.
What about extended family?
Wife to husband.
Friends,
our friends.
All of that is
That's just the life we're called to in following the example of Christ. Mm-hmm. I mean, he preferred, right? Yep. In fact, he said in the garden, not my will, because look, if it was up to me, this is not really the route I want to take, but not my will. Yours, God, I'll just prefer what you want to do in these people.
Talking about the garden, it was all good in the garden. Until Adam and Eve decided to do it their own way, right?
Man, you talk about the perfect marriage. I mean, the perfect husband and wife, and everything's going along smoothly until, man, they didn't live on the foundation, right?
And
they started to do things their own way.
I know it's time for us to go, but let me leave with this kind of strong thought.
Okay.
You know, you can justify whatever you try to justify. But I'm just going to say this. If you're trying to justify your way and you know it's against God's purpose and way for your life, then you got to stop. You got to,
stop
again,
it,
and I may be talking to a husband or a wife or father or mother out there or a brother or sister. If you're doing things, if you're behaving in a way that you know is contrary to God's word, then stop. Stop today.
Right? Yeah.
We got to go.
Hey. Got to get out of here. Man, we love you so much. Thank you for tuning in. 100%.
100%.
You can make
Success is yours. Do it God's way. Watch it happen.
See you next time.
God bless you.